We've gathered here today to pay our respects to a very special woman, Anita Kolman, also known as Mazal. Mazal was born in the port of Aden in 1923, while her parents, Rabbi Shalom and Sarah Harari, were en route to Palestine from the native Yemen. The eldest of 5 children, Mazal grew up in Mikveh Israel near Chulon. Her father was an early leader of Israel's Yemenite community. When she was 18, Mazal traveled to England to study history and law at the University of London. She wanted to become an advocate for troubled and at-risk youth. Later, she attended law school at Chicago's DePaul University. There, she met her husband-to-be, Burton Kolman. Although he was blind, Mazal believed that he had a promising future. Certainly, she looked up to him. He was 6 feet tall, 4 inches, while she stood at 5 feet 2. The couple married and moved to Wilmette. They had 3 children, Joseph, Bruce, and Carmela. Burton was appointed by Richard Daley as a Chicago Circuit Court judge, thus becoming the first blind judge in Chicago. After her husband's untimely death at the age of 34, Mazal raised her young family entirely on her own. As resourceful and creative as she was independent, Mazal turned to designing and selling jewelry to support her growing children. She sewed her own clothes as well. Her devotion to her children, her grandchildren, and the Sephardic congregation is well known. Mazal was a member of the Sephardic congregation for over 30 years and was active in the synagogue's sisterhood. In 2012, the congregation honored her with a Community Award of Distinction. The vastness of the ocean in which Mazal was born is reflected in the vastness of the love in Mazal's heart. She had an ocean of love for mankind, for God, for her dear husband, for her family, and for life itself. Who here was not touched by the effusive love she would lavish on everyone? She epitomized the saying in Ethics of the Fathers, "Heve mekabel et kol adam besever panim yafot." Always greet everyone with happy countenance. Generous and friendly to everyone. Mazal never uttered an unkind or unpleasant word. Her eyes and lips would spill over with compliments, said with such enthusiasm, making the person feel like they were the most precious person on earth. Mazal had a gift in making people feel splendid. The compliments she would lavish upon others were not empty, but came from a very sincere place. Mazal had a rare ability to look into the other person's soul and see the goodness and potential there. But Mazal did not stop there. She detected goodness and potential in someone else, and she would motivate the person to become better and to fully materialize their potential. She did this not by criticizing, but by encouraging and inspiring the person to want to reach a higher level. This is how Mazal inspired her late husband Burton to become a lawyer and then a judge. Even with the physical limitation of his blindness, Mazal saw what others did not see. Where others saw mundane, she saw depth. Where others saw limitations, she saw potential. And when life dealt her a hard blow with the death of her dear husband at a young age, she saw to it that life should continue to be sweet, and even planted hundreds upon hundreds of trees in his memory, always spreading beauty. where others may have only seen the bitterness. Mazal's voice was like music. Her voice came out of her mouth like a melody. On Shabbat, after the prayers and the Torah reading were over, one can always hear Mazal exclaiming in Hebrew, "Eze yofi, eze milim, eze dvarim, eze Torah yesh lanu, eze yofi shesh lanu Torah kazot." How wonderful, such words, what a beautiful Torah we have. How fortunate are we to have such a wonderful Torah. She would say this all the while blowing kisses into the air with her fingers. She looked forward each week to the Torah reading and was attentive to every word. She tremendously enjoyed discussing the parasha and the beauty of the Torah's poetry. Her spiritual and artistic passion were also expressed by her plan to design and purchase a new parochet, a new curtain for the Torah Ark, the Aron Kodesh. Unfortunately, this dream never was realized. Among the many things that Mazal has taught us, it is to live our lives as best we can with love and with joy. We can use each day to show those who are closest to us how much we care about them and treat others with the kindness and respect that we wish for ourselves. We can strive at all costs to make a better world so that someday, if we are blessed with a chance to look back at our time here, we know that we'd spent it well, that we made a difference, that our fleeting presence had a lasting impact on the lives of others. Mazal is no longer with us. She has left those of us who grieve her passing with the memories she gave and the good that she did. We, her family, friends, and community, who loved her and were loved in return, have immeasurably been enriched by having known this gracious lady. May God bless Mazal Kolman, and may she rest in eternal peace. Amen. I would like now to call upon Joseph Kolman.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's wonderful to hear somebody who's known my mother in a new way and appreciated many of the things that I've always known but couldn't really express, and you saw it yourself every week in the synagogue. My mother is a woman who believed that God was always by her side, helping her every step of the way. She was born in the port of Aden as her family was making a journey to Palestine. Her father was a rabbi and a shochet and became a teacher at Mikveh Yisrael, an agricultural school for European immigrants. She grew up with the best education that Palestine had to offer and graduated from a religious gymnasia and decided to become a juvenile judge in order to combat crime in her new country. At a time when going to university in Lebanon was considered traveling to the ends of the earth, she decided to go to London, where she got her undergraduate degree. Later, she traveled even further to Chicago and DePaul University Law School. There she fell in love with Burton Kolman, a brilliant blind law student. She married him 6 weeks after they met, and they had the 3 children you see here today. It wasn't easy being the wife of a blind man, but she helped him become, at age 32, Chicago's first blind judge. And then suddenly, he died of a heart attack at age 34. Her grief was bottomless. But somehow, in the depth of her despair, she had a new idea. She would work through her grief by planting a tree memorial to her husband on New Glenview Road, which was a barren, weed-choked stretch of highway that cut through Wilmette. She planted hundreds of trees, flowering crabs and honey locusts that burst into bloom every spring, turning the highway into a living watercolor. I was about 13 at the time, and it was then that I was forced to confront my mother's deep faith in God. She believed that God would help her build the tree memorial, and He would cause the sun to shine at the right times and the rain to fall. In short, she believed in miracles. The Bible was for her a living document. The tree memorial was a tribute to her love of her husband, but it was also a tribute to her love of God. I didn't understand or share this faith, and I still don't. But I was in awe of it back then, and I'm in awe of it today. A couple of very difficult decades followed as she struggled to raise a family and working first as a jewelry designer, then as a nurse. And then in the late 1980s, her life took a new turn, positive turn. She saw her 3 children happily married and was blessed with the birth of 6 grandchildren. She also began attending the Sephardic congregation in Chicago. And she loved the people and she loved the service, but most of all, she loved hearing the words of God being read every Saturday morning by the synagogue's wonderful chazan. It was one of the great joys of her old age. When she was too old to live alone, she moved to the self-help home and spent her final 5 years living with people she loved while being cared for by the home's amazing staff. So she grew up in Palestine in a community with a common purpose and a common faith, and at self-help, she found it again among survivors and refugees who, like her, had established a new life in a foreign land. The things of this world were alive to my mother in ways I can only begin to understand. Everything, a glass, a building, a houseplant, everything had a personality and the potential to be beautiful. She loved trees in particular. She would look at a tree and say, "Look at this fellow here. Look how proud he is." She could connect to trees and find friendship in them. Some she liked, some she didn't. It's no surprise that she planted hundreds of them and cared for them as she would her children. Years from now, when all of us in this room will have left this earth, the earth will continue to tilt on its axis every spring, bringing this particular longitude and latitude a little closer to the sun. And my mother's flowering crabs and honey locusts will feel that warmth, and they will burst into color year after year, miraculously, paying tribute to my mother's love for her husband and her love of God.